Welcome back, everybody, to the Even Your Dynasty show.
We just got breaking news in.
Welcome back, everybody, to our post-holiday edition of the Even Your Dynasty show. It's just going to be me today. Dan's going to be away for the next couple weeks, and Ricky, they're both kind of in the middle of getting new jobs. So if you talk to them, you can make sure you congratulate those guys. You'll probably see them here pretty dang soon. We'll have them back before too long, but I am going to be rocking it solo today. We're going to be keeping it pretty short, but as you guys can see from the title, we are going to have a giveaway that's going to be going on a little later. We've got a couple extra of these hats that are right above me, so we're going to be giving away one of those today. I know somebody brought up the giving away memberships in the past. That's actually on our list of things that we want to do. I've got to figure out how that works though, so it's not going to be on today's video, but we are going to give away one of those hats kind of towards the tail end. I'm planning on only keeping this to maybe 45 minutes, maybe push it closer to an hour. We'll see. We'll just see how it goes. Obviously, there's not a ton of news with the Giants that's been going on lately. So we're hoping that the news cycle speeds up a little bit. There are some reasons to believe, especially on the starting pitcher side, that it might kind of start to push a little faster, especially with Amai's window closing in approximately, I think, 1 week from today. So that maybe that'll jumpstart the starting pitcher market, because ever since Cease signed, none of the big names have gone since then. So hopefully we get that rolling. Hopefully it gets free agency rolling. Hopefully it gets the trade market rolling. It gets everything moving a little bit, because MLB free agency, or the MLB offseason, I should say, is just moving at kind of a snail pace, like it does, seems to do every year. So so today's video, we're going to just kind of jump in on kind of what needs are remaining for the Giants. I'm going to just kind of go over what I think they should prioritize on those needs. Obviously, they haven't really done a ton to address much yet. I mean, you could argue that they've gotten a fifth starter and a backup catcher, and they've kind of, grabbed a couple pieces that could help the bullpen. But, that's... Yeah, two of them are coming off injury and one of them's a minor league contract. So it's like, how much confidence do we have in what they've done with the pen? But they've kind of done a little bit there. But I don't think we can reasonably expect them to fill every single need. Realistically, that's just not going to happen. So I'm going to kind of talk about the ones that I think they should go ahead and, focus on, as far as trying to get the most, address the most needs with maybe like two guys. So we'll kind of go in there. And Insane Sports Take says, my wish list is a new owner. I'm pretty sure there's not many Giants fans. That would be sad if they sold the team. But the reality is the Giants are a cash cow. They're making the Johnsons a ton of money, and I don't really see any reason why they would even consider selling, unless they were going to make just such an astronomical number off the sale that they, it was worth it to them, which they honestly might if they did it. They keep selling shares. So, but I don't see that as something that's realistically going to happen. So let me just jump in here. Give me 1 second. See a couple chats coming in. Make sure if you guys have anything you guys want to talk about, throw them in the chats. I'm going to do my bit. When it's just me, it's a little harder to like kind of reply to every chat. But I will do my best to kind of keep an eye on the chats and pull in as many as I can. There we go. Welcome everybody. So I see kind of a handful of specific needs to this team. Number one, starting pitching. That's the obvious one. We saw it last season where a bunch of the young guys had to start games. You kind of got a mixed bag of results. Some guys were really, really good, guys like Landon Roop, but he also dealt with some injuries. Other guys flashed. McDonald had some good moments at the end of the year. Kaiwei Tang had a couple good starts here and there. Wisenhunt had, I think, one or two good ones, but then also struggled quite a bit. Birdsong looked great out of the pen early. Then he completely noodled in the second half, had a lot of struggles there. They have some promising young players, but I don't think you can reasonably rely on a lot of these guys going into the year with that like set as your guys. So they do definitely need to get at least one more starter, in my opinion. I know we all saw Manazian's comments like a week or so ago where he said, "Oh, we don't necessarily need one." To me, that was just him trying to give a vote of confidence to the young guys. I don't think they actually truly believe that. Not for 1 second. Felt like normal, GM talk that you would normally hear where they kind of say one thing and ultimately end up doing another. So don't really believe that, but they need more pen. I saw a few people mention in there. I think it's pretty obvious that the team's not going to go expensive on the bullpen. I think you're going to see a lot of cheaper, less than $5 million options. I think maybe you're going to see a guy like Kopech. I could see that. Not the sexiest names, that's for sure. I don't think anybody's going to feel good about the pen, but to me, that stresses the importance of upgrading the starting rotation and going in with a better rotation than you had last season, which I do think Hauser is going to give you at worst Verlander production. I actually think he's a little bit better. I like some of the stuff models I've seen. I like the increase in velocity. It was up 2 ticks last season. I think that's going to help him a little bit sustain some of what he did. Now, I don't think he's going to be I don't think he'll post quite the numbers he did last season, but even if you see a little dip, he should be able to stay like under a 4 ERA or right around there. And he's a fifth starter. I mean, you're just hoping he can eat up 140 or so innings and stay mostly healthy and keep you in games. I mean, that's really what that is. Ultimately, that you just need depth. So that's kind of what that was. I like the Suzak deal. They got a backup catcher now. And between him and Rodriguez, I feel pretty confident one of them will take that role. So as much as it's not a big need and it's not the one everyone wanted to see filled, it was something that needed to be done. So I liked that. But I see, aside from that, I know a lot of people talk second base and a lot of people talk right field. And I think those are the two obvious ones. I think there's a bigger need in right field than there is second base. I feel pretty confident in what Casey Schmidt can bring next season. But that said, second base might be the one that's easier to actually get an upgrade. You look around on the outfield market, Ref Snyder just got signed by Seattle, which I thought that was a pretty solid pickup for them. But Ref Snyder just got signed. I mean, now you look at the outfield market, and unless you're going to go with a bigger name like a Kyle Tucker or a Cody Bellinger, there's not a lot of options. So, you got guys like Austin Hayes out there who he's a guy that's hit left-handers pretty well. Maybe that's a guy that you'd feel pretty confident in if you wanted to, try and have him platoon with Gilbert. The other name that's been pretty popular I've seen with some of the beat writers, especially, is a guy like Harrison Bader. I'm not huge on Bader personally. Offensively, he's been pretty well below average. Last season, he got on an absolute heater after the trade, and I think 2021 he had a really solid year as well. But other than that, he's been a far below average hitter. And now that said, he more than makes up with it defensively. But when we're talking about a team that already struggles to swing it, it's just, I'm not sure that's necessarily the best thing the team could do, especially given the money he might be able to get. Now, if that number gets moved down to like 10 million a year for like 2 years, then I think that's something that you probably have to heavily consider. And kind of as Ace Atheist says here, it would bump Lee to right. So theoretically, you could probably strengthen both your center field defense and your right field defense. And then you kind of got to hope that Ramos bounces back a bit, but then you have Gilbert as a fourth outfielder, and Gilbert was already their best defensive outfielder. So you could potentially have Gilbert as like a late inning defensive replacement for Ramos in those cases. And at that point, I think you'd be feeling really good about your outfield defense if going across the line, like in the seventh, eighth, ninth innings, you're looking at, Gilbert, Bader, Lee. So I could definitely see the appeal there, especially from a defensive standpoint. That said, I don't love the idea of Bader if he's going to end up getting 15, 20 a year for 2 or 3 years. I think that's just insane to pay that guy that kind of money, but that's me personally. Second base, I kind of mentioned that might be an easier option, especially on the trade market. You're looking at guys like Nico Horner, Brendan Donovan. I'm not even going to factor in Ketel Marte. I don't think he's going to be a fit ultimately because he's on with the no trade clause situation. I just don't see him waiving that to go to San Francisco anyway. But also trading inside divisions, really difficult because for Arizona to be able to sell that to their fans, they're going to have to feel like they won that trade, which means the Giants are going to overpay relative to the rest of the league to try and get him. So I just don't see that as a fit. Those are so incredibly difficult to get the interdivision trades done unless the team is just incredibly desperate. And I just don't see this as a situation where the Diamondbacks necessarily have to move him. And I think other teams are going to be willing to offer enough that the cost for the Giants would get outrageous. So don't see that as a fit. And I don't think he'd waive the no trade clause anyway. So I don't think it really matters at the end of the day. A guy like Horner could certainly fit multiple needs. Obviously the team needs, higher average ability, good defense. They need speed. If you could get a guy like Nico Horner, you're kind of upgrading and addressing 3 different needs in one player. So I could see if that one is a possibility, depending on cost, like that's a big time pickup. Someone brought up Willie Castro earlier in the chat. I don't like Castro as the starting second baseman. Now, I think Castro could be a solid utility player where, maybe he plays a little bit of second here. He can play the outfield. He's done that quite a bit. If you could get Castro as a bench piece, I actually kind of like that move. Has hit lefties at least okay. But I think he's been a little better than league average against left-handed pitching. So I could get behind that one. But that said, I don't think he's an upgrade over Casey Schmidt at all. Personally, I think Casey Schmidt's got significantly more upside anyway and isn't any worse of a player today. So I wouldn't sign him to be the everyday guy. But the Giants have had bench issues. Like that's been a weakness to this team for years. So I even though we need starting players and star players and all this, like it doesn't mean you just ignore the bench. So the other side of that is, if you can get him as a good utility player for a reasonable cost, I'm all for it. So I think that would make sense. Potentially he could, like I said, he plays the outfield as well. You could put him in right field if you platoon him with a Gilbert a little bit. That's an option to get him on the field. So I do think that's in play. Yeah, well, Tom, if you see what Bellinger was supposedly wanting, the 400 million a year or 400 million for I think 8 years or something like that is what the rumor was he wanted, which I couldn't help but laugh at that. I thought that was absolutely insane, but yeah, I mean, if I think that realistically the cost is going to get brought way down. I don't think he's a I don't think he's a $30+ million player personally. If the number was like, I mean, a couple of years ago, I was hoping they could get him for like 8 for 200, but obviously it didn't happen then. And then now he's a 30-year-old with questionable batted ball metrics that I'm not sure if a long-term deal for Cody Bellinger is the prudent thing to do. I personally wouldn't. It's not my cup of tea. For me, I would rather even like trade for a few guys, even though that means sacrificing some assets, but it's a tough one. I mean, he does fit needs, similar to what I said with Horner. He fits multiple needs on this team where they need outfield defense. They need, someone that can make 2-strike approaches. They need somebody that can steal you some bags. Maybe he's not a 25 stolen base a year guy, but he's shown he can push 20. And he's got some pop and he'll hit for a solid average. So like there's reasons to like him. Now you wonder the fit in you wonder the fit in Oracle Park for him, but he's had a good amount of success in Oracle Park. Outside of 2 just atrocious years when his shoulders were, his shoulder was messed up. And then I think he had some knee injuries the following years. You throw away those 2 seasons, his Oracle Park numbers are actually pretty solid. Not a lot of homers, but good average, good, some solid extra base hits, double and triples. So, that's the hard one. Let's see. George, you had a comment in here. Let me try and pull that one up. Have to ask for Kyle Tucker or Bo Bichette. We need impact talent, at least 1 to 2 impact bats. I mean, listen, I would love Bo Bichette. He has been one of my favorite hitters around the league, but me being just realistic on the overall construction of the roster, I don't see any chance that this team is going to have 4 guys on the infield locked up for 5+ years, not on expensive deals. That's just being realistic to the roster construction. Unless somebody's going to get kicked to the outfield, which I don't see that. I don't see any of them as real outfield fits unless like you're going to try and get Bo in left field or something like that, which I don't see that one happening either. So I don't think he's a fit. Kyle Tucker, I mean, Tucker fits a lot of needs, but if he's going to get $400 million, do we honestly think Greg Johnson's going to do that? And I could sit here and beat the table all day long saying, hey, they need this guy. They need this guy. And I think Tucker would be a perfect fit for what they need. Someone that can hit for a high average, does have a little bit of pop, can swipe you bags. Even though his speed isn't great, like he still steals 25 to 30 bags, it seems, most seasons. Plus defender. I mean, he would help a lot of ways, but that's the more the more realistic for their roster construction from that standpoint. But it's funny because Bichette, I think, is actually the hitter that would fit the park better. Bichette raises the question, and not to go too far down this rabbit hole, but Bichette raises the question on, when they re-upped Chapman 2 years ago, you kind of look at it and you go, if you could do it over, do you wish you could just have Casey play third and go sign Bo Bichette to play second and then have Chapman locking down third and, Casey is second? Like it gets to be a tough situation where I think maybe from a roster construction and balanced lineup standpoint, they'd have been better off. Maybe with Bichette, but it's the whole bird in the hand thing. You had Chapman here, he was already there. So not to go rehash all that, but that's kind of the situation. Eddie says, say Giants don't sign a right fielder. Who do you think it'll be at right field? Probably Gilbert. If you look at what they have, unless Gilbert just comes out and shows he just flat out can't hit, which it remains to be seen. I like his game. He struggled a lot against left-handed pitching in the minors. I have serious questions on whether or not he's going to be able to hit it in the major leagues at any point. That's kind of why the whole platoon thing keeps getting brought up. Different with situations. You look at guys like Bryce Eldridge, who actually have hit lefties really well in the minor leagues and shown he can hit them. So I feel like he'll come around to it. But questions on whether or not he can hit. But at the same time, he's their best defensive outfielder on the roster, on the 40-man. Outside of, you could probably make a case for Grant McCray, but Grant McCray's got way more, issues with his bat than Gilbert does. So I don't think he's even in play. Someone said give Matos 400 at bats. Listen, I love Luis Matos. I think the team watched the defense, and that's going to kind of eliminate him. If they had 2 better defenders at the other spots, they probably would be a little more willing to ride out the shortcomings defensively and see if he could turn it around, because I think he has the ability to. But in the grand scheme, I don't think Posey is going to be willing to deal with that kind of defense again with Matos, Ramos, and Lee in center and having below average defense across the outfield. I just don't think that's possible. You could maybe see Gilbert and Matos in some sort of platoon. I don't love that, because if anything, Luis Matos has shown he can't handle a platoon and being the weak side of a platoon with his bat. He just can't get it going. So I don't like that, but I think that's kind of, what you're looking at. People these days are delusional, thinking that running this team back with platoons and cheap players are going to make us a playoff team. Yeah, it's the reality is, if this team's going to make the playoffs, they're going to need to get at least 2 impact players, in my opinion. Now, the platoons and things, like, you're going to have to do what you got to do to try and win some games. Like, that is just going to be part of it. If you could go find another impact bat, you probably could live with the Gilbert not giving you a ton in right field offensively, but accepting that he's going to be good, defensively. And that's where, if you could get a guy like Brendan Donovan or a Nico Horner that's going to hit for a high average, give you that other offensive profile that you could put near the top of the order, be a table setter for the guys like Adamas, Devers, etc. I think that would be a good impact player, even though it's not the sexiest name, it's not the biggest bat. I just think that's kind of what you're looking at. But they need two impact guys. You need, in my opinion, you need one impact starting pitcher that's like a legit number 2 or 3. They need to be able to win you games. They need to be a really good pitcher, and then you need an impact to the lineup, and preferably one that impacts the lineup that you can upgrade, help with your defense and whatnot. And I don't think Harrison Bader's an impact player in the regard they need it. I think he would help the outfield defense, but I don't think he's gonna, be the biggest. I don't think he's gonna do enough to the offense. Vida, I disagree as far as Donovan goes. He's a 280 hitter that has. I get the home runs aren't there. We have different definitions of impact players here, man. To me, they need a different offensive profile, and it's not just like a slap hitting 280. You're talking about a guy that he hits the ball hard. It's just, we've seen it out of Donovan. Now, he's not a superstar. Like, I'm not saying he needs to be a superstar, but look at the impact guys like Freddie Sanchez had on the Giants when he came. Look at the impact Marco Scutero had on the Giants when he came to that offense, when they got that other offensive profile. So maybe I shouldn't say like I shouldn't make it sound like he's a star, because that's not what I'm talking about, because Nico Horner's not a star either. But to me, the impact they can have on the offense being a different profile than what they already have is pretty significant to me, rather than just getting another guy that strikes out a ton and hits, 25 to 30 home runs. That's not what this team needs. This team needs to be able to beat you in other ways, whether that's getting some stolen bags, it's getting a guy that gets on base consistently up at the top of the order to set up the other guys. They need somebody with that kind of impact to the lineup. Somebody asked about starting pitchers. Do the Giants sign one of Suarez, Valdez, or Imai? If not, do we trade for a Gore, Peralta, or Bubic? This is a tough one, because I think Imai, it's kind of a wait and see on the market. Supposedly the market might be coming back down a little bit with that. If the market is, I could see him being in play. The problem with Imai is going to be the upfront cost. Because he's on, you have to pay the posting fee. If that number gets up around 150 million, and this is not, I'm not defending this in any way. This is just the way I look at it and the reality of it. I just don't think that someone like Greg Johnson's going to be willing to, pay the 25 million a year and then also slap on a $25 million posting fee to that. The way they're acting like they're afraid to pay pitchers, I just think that's just not going to happen. But if that number comes down into a reasonable range, maybe Posey can talk him into it. The problem is we're not even really hearing numbers on him. Earlier in the offseason, everybody was kind of projecting, he's going to make 150 or $200 million. And now it's like, there's just no word about what he might make. There's a lot of talk that, the Yankees might not be in on him anymore. If his market dries up quite a bit, you might be looking at getting him for a reasonable cost. And if that, I'm not going to say it's going to be Senga cheap. I think Senga was 5 for 75 million, 4 or 5 years ago. But, if that number's under 100 for 5 or 6 years, maybe Posey can talk him into it on that one. The Suarez and Valdez ones I think are tricky, because I think the qualifying offer is going to factor in on this. After the Giants got that jump all the way up to the 4th pick, where they got this big increase in signing their signing bonus money for the draft next season, I'm not sure how inclined they are to lose that 2nd round pick. And I'm not saying they should or shouldn't. To me, if you can get an impact player right now, I'd rather do that and not worry about it. Just go get the best player with the 4th. But because of having that 2nd round pick does give them a lot of options for that draft. So I could see that factoring, even if it shouldn't theoretically. As far as the trades go, as always, it comes down to cost. Peralta is the one that I would want the most of those 3. I think the cost for Gore, I really like him. If you can get him without giving up your big 3, then I would be all for it. Not sure you can. I don't think he's worth giving up a Bryce Eldridge for, and that might ultimately be the cost. And to me, I would just say hell no to that. With Peralta, I don't think the cost will be any of those top three because you're talking about a rental player, even though he is inexpensive financially. So Peralta's the guy I personally would want to go get. If you can, I think, if you can get Peralta in one of those, Horner, Donovan, whatever options, I think you're looking at a team that's going to be pretty competitive for that fifth spot, or that third wild card spot, I should say. Cabrera, I really like. Tom, supposedly the Giants checked in on him, and it didn't go very far because of the asking price, which to me kind of tells me that they called the Marlins. The Marlins said Bryce, and the Giants said no, and that was that. I should sign a Meyer Valdez, trade Casey Schmidt and Wisenhunt to Casey for Bubic, sign Kopech. I'd trade Ray for a prospect or two from the Mets or Orioles. I mean, a couple parts of this. I kind of talked about the whole Meyer Valdez thing. I don't think Casey Schmidt and Wisenhunt gets Bubic, though. I think you're looking at a bigger cost. Posey's not going to go if they go 500. I don't think the teams. I mean, here's the reality, and no one's no one's going to want to hear this, but the reality is, I really think the Giants' window is like 2 or 3 years away, like their real window, when this team has a chance to be really good. There is a ton of young talent that is like on the doorstep right now. And there's a lot of young talent down in the lower levels that's value should increase quite a bit to where they're going to have a lot of assets to trade. I personally believe this is going to be a top 10 farm system by next offseason. I think they are really trending hard up. But they're just, they're not quite at that spot right now today where they can just unload players for a bunch of good players. Like that's the problem, is these guys, a lot of them need a little more time. And that means guys like Kayama, De La Torre, Keener Martinez, even Jacob Bresnahan, a lot of these guys are probably like 1 year away from their value being just significantly higher than it is today. And that just gives them more and more assets. They'll also have Luis Hernandez in the system, assuming nothing goes wrong. So there's a lot that they can do in about a year. I think where they'll have a lot more flexibility to make these big, bold moves. Right now they have 3 guys in the top 100 on, if you look at like Baseball America's top prospects list. I look at what's coming, and I think next year you're going to be looking at a team that's got like 5. I really believe that. I'm not just sitting there trying to be super optimistic on the Giants farm system. I watch it every day. I watch what these guys have done. I watch them relative to a lot of the league. That's how I view a lot of these guys. And talking to especially like Jesus Cano last week, or might have been 2 weeks ago at this point, it was refreshing to hear he kind of carried a lot of those same opinions and optimisms on certain players in their system. So I think you're going to be looking at a team that's got a lot of options, and about, where maybe after this year, going into the following year, then you have guys like Robbie Ray coming off the books. They're going to have some money they can play with. That I think that's kind of where the window kind of starts. And, unfortunately, part of it is going to be they need some of these young players to finally pan out. They do need some strong players coming up. So, well, and in saying, that's why I'm saying it's not necessarily that they have to be good for the Giants. It's their value needs to increase to the point where you can actually reasonably trade them and have more competitive packages relative to the rest of the league. That's the whole thing about building up your farm system. That's why I will always, to every day of the week, say the single most important thing for any franchise around the league is to build up your farm system and to have a strong farm system, because regardless of if they are good for you, it just gives you significantly more avenues to improving your roster, because either they might pan out for you or you can trade them for people, because yes, they are, kind of coin flips, but you also need some of those coin flips to go your way. But like, because reasonably you can't just have an all expensive roster. You've got to have some young players be good. But yeah, it's that's why I feel like their window is about a year. And you look at the roster now, and it feels a little bit, it's discouraging because it feels a little bit with what they're doing so far. It's a lot of offseason to go. I'm not gonna completely bag them until the chips have fallen a little more, because there are a ton of starting pitchers out there. There's still most of the big time position players are still out there. I mean, really, you look around, the only thing that's dried up a lot is the pen. So, I mean, we could probably judge them a bit harsher on what they've not done to the pen. But as far as like the trade market goes and free agency goes, most of the big guys are still out there outside of guys like Cease and Schwarber. So, it's hard for me to get too harsh on the team, as frustrating as it is. But that said, I will be right here criticizing them if they end up just not doing really anything. Like, that's going to be really frustrating. But I definitely feel like they're in a frustrating spot right now where I'm not sure if the Johnsons are just not going to let them come out and outright say, hey, we're not really going to go spend a whole bunch and not really push our chips in on 2026. It almost feels like they might just not believe that this team is enough right now and it's not worth the investment. So they're going to try, and they feel like they have to look at some of these young players and see if any of them can step up. And then if the team does kind of make a push early in the year, kind of like they did last season where they got 10, 12 games over 500, you might see them be a bit more aggressive on the trade market mid-season trying to add. I don't love that. I mean, this is just me kind of thinking out loud on what it almost feels like that's how they view the team. And it'd be hard to defend that. I mean, if 83 wins makes the playoffs again, like it did last season, which I don't think it will. I think it's going to be a higher number, but they won 83 games last year, and you looked at the offseason. Yeah, they got Adames, but all they really added other than him was Justin Verlander. It was a disappointing, offseason overall outside of the Adames signing. They did go get Devers, so he got reinforcements early in the year. It was frustrating. So. Yeah, George, I would agree with that. I think if you're talking about being like a World Series contender, they're like, 4 to 6 players, impact players away. I mean, if that's the reality. They're going to need to strengthen their roster and balance it out quite a bit. They've got too many weaknesses currently on the roster. That's if you're talking like World Series contender, and I don't think that's realistic expectation right now. I mean, the only way that happens is if like 3 young dudes just like take off and then they make some trades. That's that one I don't think is going to happen. But I think if they want to be like a playoff contender, similar, like I said earlier, I think if they got 2 impact players, you could be looking at a team that could win. That doesn't mean that's all you get. I mean, they still need to maybe get a guy like Kopech or something for the pen. They need a little more depth on the bench. But if they could get like 2 impact guys, or 2 guys that could have significant impacts, I should say, whether it's like Peralta and Nico Horner or something like that, I think you'd be looking at a pretty strong chance to be a playoff team at the end of the day. What do I think about Castellanos? He can hit. I hate his defense though, and I just don't see the fit when we're talking about Oracle Park. I just don't think it's like, are you going to sign him to replace Ramos, who I think already is giving you kind of similar production from both sides of the ball, like for a significant higher cost? So I just don't see that one. They're currently a worse team than they were last year, and they only won. I actually disagree that they're a worse team if you're talking overall start to end of the season. I think pen wise, they're probably worse off right now. Rotation wise, I actually think it's about a wash. I don't actually think they're worse. Offensively, I mean, as some people have mentioned, you've got Devers for the full season now. You've got hopefully, theoretically, Chapman shouldn't be, he shouldn't miss 20, 25 games again like he did last season, or 30 games, whatever it was. He's been historically pretty durable. So I think you're going to get a little bit more there. The other thing you're talking, I point to is, and now it doesn't mean this is going to be the case with everybody, of course not. But the reality is, if you look at the Giants starting lineup, 6 of the 9 guys, and this is just on the offense, 6 of the 9 guys are between 21 and 27. And this is where Hunter Bentz is going to need to earn that, earn that paycheck, because theoretically those guys should improve as the year goes by. So I don't think this is necessarily a worse roster overall. And I'm talking the whole year. Cause listen, we started Wade at first, who was like a -2 wins above replacement player in only 2 months. We had Verlander was pretty much useless for 4 months of the year before he finally got going at the second half. There was a lot of just really poor play. And as strong, we can talk about the bullpen being great from maybe an ERA standpoint, but if you wanted to look at facts, Camilo Duvall, if you go Camilo Duvall, Randy Rodriguez, Ryan Walker, and Tyler Rogers, those 4 guys, I think, were 35 for 50 on saves last season. They were about 70%. The league average is about 80. So for as good as the pen was for a chunk of the year, they did not close games well. So they lost a lot of games in the late innings because the pen blew it. So, this is where coaching is going to have to matter. I think the coaching is going to get more, hopefully, out of these guys. I'm not predicting it's going to be a great coaching staff, but I felt like they got about the bare minimum out of their guys last year. So I do think they're going to be a little bit, I think if you're looking roster talent wise from start to finish, they're about even compared to last year. But, overall, I think that the hope is that the coaching staff's going to get a little more. Yeah, I think I will say this. If Henches is healthy, I think Henches is going to actually surprise a lot of people. He was a late inning guy for Cleveland. He's really good. He can be a really solid 8th inning guy if he's healthy. That's the disclaimer. So I do like that move that they made. Dom, I appreciate you for the $5. Fantastic show as always. Thank you for all you do. Merry Christmas, y'all. Yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody. Hopefully you guys had a great Christmas yesterday. For those of you that don't celebrate, hope you guys are having a great holiday season. Yeah, hopefully you guys all had great times with the families. Enjoyed it's always a weird situation with the Thursday holiday. I don't know. Hopefully not too many of you had to go back to work today, but I know I did, but it's that weird one day back. But we'll see. But I appreciate you, Dom. Oops, sorry. Willem says, would Amaya and Donovan be enough? Hopefully. That's the reality is, to me, it's like you need 2 impact guys to have a shot. I think right now I wouldn't even really give this team a shot, not unless Bryce Eldridge comes up and is everything this team hopes he is. If Bryce is a budding superstar, it changes everything. But would Amaya and Donovan be enough? I feel pretty confident what you would get out of Brendan Donovan, even in Oracle Park. But with Amaya, it's just a wild card. You're really betting on upside. So if he develops a little bit and he shows up and, Senga overachieved, it almost felt like expectations. He exceeded expectations when Senga came to the Mets. If you get that kind of production out of Amaya, where he shows up and all of a sudden you've got a guy that's got a low 3 ERA and, is really, really good, then yeah, it changes, it changes the outlook. All of a sudden you're looking at it going, oh, we got a kind of a front end guy, not an ace, but a front end of the rotation guy. I think if you can get something like that, then you're feeling pretty good at being able to push for the playoffs. And they're going to certainly, as people have been talking about, they're going to need to fix the pen some capacity, whether that's young guys young guys stepping up or whatever, getting a few more arms. But I would feel pretty solid about this team being like an 86 to 87, 88 wins at that point. Is that enough? I don't know. A couple years ago, it took 89 to get in. Last season, it took 83. I think 3 years ago, it took 84. So could be enough. I don't know. Like I can't. I don't know what that number is going to end up being at the end of the year, but I would feel pretty good about them being a winning team, especially if the coaching staff does get a little more fundamental baseball out of this team, which they desperately need. Yeah, I know it doesn't move up, but I believe they actually said they're like pick 45 on this one. I'll have to double check that, but I swear they said it was pick 45. And the reality is it's not so much that pick would move up. Where it gives them options is because of the big jump in bonus money. They could theoretically try and go below slot first round and then go way above slot second round. It's just where you can kind of try and grab 2 first round guys. They've done that with varying levels of success over the last. They did that a lot under Farhan. They had different levels of success doing that. I'm not a big fan of it. I would prefer just not really worrying about the QO if the right player is available and just going with BPA at number 4. But it just, I could see it being a deterrent to the team. Whether I agree with it or not, it's just, I could see it being a deterrent. Amai would probably be our 3rd starter at least out the gate, but I think he's got number 2 upside. I don't think he's going to be an ace in the league, but I think he'll be a number 2, or I think he's got number 2 upside if he hits the ceiling. 100% agree with this one right here. Ron Washington will improve the base running. If you look historically at what Ron Washington's done coaching, he has had teams that are great fundamental base running teams that are aggressive. So I think we're going to see more stolen base attempts. Hopefully you'll see success with that, but I think you're going to see a team that runs more under Vitello with Washington here. And I think you're going to see a better base running team than what we saw. Definitely Imai is not Yamamoto. I think he can be a little bit better version than Senga. I think that's his upside. And I think Senga's a solid 3. At least he was. I know he had some command issues last year, kind of especially. But in the past, I feel like Senga's been about a number 3 when healthy and everything. And I think Imai could be a little bit better than that. I think he's kind of between the two, but he is not Yamamoto. Yamamoto got $325 billion for a reason. Part of it was his age, but part of it was just how good he is. And I said it way back then that I thought, Sasaki got kind of most of the hype, and I felt like Yamamoto was the better pitcher. I wouldn't say they win 10 more games based on their coaching, but I actually reasonably think they could win 4 or 5. Their coaching was that bad last season. It was pretty brutal. Make sure, just so you guys know, to get entered in the giveaway, we'll run that in a few minutes here. It's not going to be this hat, but we have a couple more hats like this. We're going to do we're going to give one away today. These aren't ones that are on the merch site. It's kind of a special one that Dan and Ricky and I did when we were first launching everything. We're going to be giving that away, but all you have to do to get entered, you got to be subscribed to the channel and you got to drop a comment. That's it. That'll get you entered. We'll be doing the giveaway here probably in a few minutes. But yeah, if you want to get in on that, make sure you just drop a comment. Whoever wins, I'll let you guys know. Just either reach out to me either on X, on Instagram, EYDShow there. You can reach out to Dan or Ricky, any of us 3. Just reach out to us and we'll get your info to get it over there. Is it the air hat, like the Billy Ripken air card? No, they all came in correct. They were all correctly done. We just had we got a couple extras, and the idea was to use them for giveaways, and we just hadn't done it yet. So I was like, hey, let's give one away today with the holidays and everything. Wanted to give one of those out and get something out there to you guys. Hadn't done a giveaway in a little bit. Yeah, the whole thing with the Giants, comment or chat, sorry. In the YouTube, you just have to in the YouTube chat, live chat like you guys are in. So, Willem, as long as you don't leave, you have to be here for the drawing. As long as you don't leave, since you've commented, you're going to be entered. So, you'll be good there. Yeah, a lot of teams it's funny. You look at the starting pitcher market and it went kind of insane for a number of years. And now a lot of teams have backed off on that. You're still going to see you're still going to see some teams go a bit crazy. And I thought the C steal was absolutely insane. Now the deferred money kind of changes the math a little bit on like the competitive balance tax hits and stuff like that. But um, I also respect the hell out of Toronto's ownership and their group because they're going for it. The reality is they missed winning the World Series by what, like 4 inches, or 2 inches. What Kiner Falefa wasn't quite, he didn't quite make it to home. Like that's how close they were to being world champions. So, um, I respect the hell out of that organization for basically pushing their chips in, and they're not done. Supposedly they might be trying to get Tucker. I mean, all you got to do is give that group a their props and their just due because they're going for it, and I love it. So, yeah, I think we've got, I think I've got a little over 50 in the YouTube chat. If you're watching on X, if you jump over to YouTube, you can get entered. So, I'll wait a couple more minutes. Um, maybe get this going at like 9:25. I'm trying to keep this to like less than an hour, so we're gonna run that probably about then. But I'll give everybody, about 6 more minutes to try and jump in there. Yeah, I think a lot of us wish they would just sell the team to Lacob. Like that's the reality. Now, I think if they put the team up for sale, I do think Lacob would come out and go bonkers trying to pick up the team because that's a guy that is not afraid to spend because he actually understands you got to spend money to make money. And I mean, we saw Lacob paying what, like a $500 million tax bill for a number of years for the Warriors, and he would never have to pay that kind of tax bill for the Giants because the tax hit's not as bad. Now, that said, with all the stuff with the Dodgers, the new the new collective bargaining agreement that's going to be, after next season, we'll see what the team does. It might make it to where even a guy like Lacob wouldn't really be able to impact the team enough if they do put a cap in. So we'll see. Yeah, I think all of us wish that would happen. I mean, it's frustrating. I mean, I don't want to sit here and go too far down that rabbit hole. We've talked about it quite a bit in the past, but the reality is the Giants they play in the fourth biggest market. And then if you start adding things like San Jose and Sacramento, I think San Jose is like the 27th biggest market. Sacramento is like the 30th biggest market, something like that, in the country. And, they're going to have sole control over all these markets and they have the 12th highest payroll. And I think that's unacceptable. I'm not saying they need to have the highest payroll. I'm not even going to complain that they don't spend like the Dodgers, but you're looking at a team that should never be below like sixth in payroll around the league or fifth. They should be a top 5 payroll. And yeah, sometimes that'll dip if your team just falls apart and you're selling off pieces. It might dip down a bit, but I mean, they should consistently be around the top 5. So yeah, at least 10th. Yeah, I mean, the fact they're not even top 10 is even more embarrassing than everything. And you look at their payroll over the years, and this is where I've seen some comments on like X in different places where they're like, oh, they bought the Korean theater and everyone's like, oh, it's the long-term game. It's going to make the money that they can filter back into the team. And I'm like, okay, just like the ballpark getting paid off is added to their payroll, just like the, Mission Rock stuff is added to their payroll. And then you look at their payroll since like 2018 or 2016, I think even, and they went up over the tax for a couple of years and then they dropped back in the, late 20 teens trying to chase one or two more, trying to chase one more run. and you look at their payroll over the last like 6-7 years, and it's pretty stagnant. I mean, it kind of goes up and down between around 150 million and about, it kind of averages around 170, and it hasn't really like trended up. It's just been kind of up and down during that time. And it's like, okay, so I'll believe that they're going to put the money back into the team when I see it, because they paid off the park in that time. They got the Mission Rock stuff up, and they're not doing anything with that money as far as the roster goes. So I will, I think the Cran Theater thing could be great, but it's like I gotta see that money coming back to the team and not just lining their pockets more. So it looks like a money laundering system. It's like Ozark, except for it's, in San Francisco. Let's see. Hey, at least we got this going for us. We're going to be a top 30 team next season. Love it. All right, couple more minutes. If you guys have yeah, I know, insane. A couple more minutes, everyone. If you haven't dropped a comment yet, make sure you jump over, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. That part's not required, but we appreciate it. It helps the channel grow. And we'll get that going. If you guys have any, let's see. If you guys have anything else we want to do, will the EYDShow be shown live at the Koran? That would actually be hilarious. Let's see. Yeah, it's funny with Larry Bear. I don't know if he's like he might be one of the most least liked executives in the entire Bay Area. I know he obviously isn't he doesn't really have control over, actual like baseball moves, but yeah. He's a guy they probably ought to just cut bait with, but I'm sure he's made them a lot of money, and that's why they're probably loyal to him. But yeah, it's rough. Kuiper Brothers show at the Cran. Yeah, speaking of Glenn, tentatively, obviously this is going to be, I think, 2 weeks from today. Tentatively, we're trying to plan something with him. It'll likely be just me, but I'll be doing something with him, I think, on the 9th. So plan on hopefully seeing us together doing a show then. Next week, we're going to try and get that Damian Bravo interview next Monday. We had some stuff come up with him a couple weeks ago. It didn't work out. We're trying to get him on next Monday. Also, I don't know how many of you guys are on X, but if you're on X and you follow him, Matthew Knauer, I'm going to have him on the show next week. We're going to pick a date. When I get a date, I'll let you guys know. But we're going to try and get him on the show next week. We're just, like I said, we've already worked it out. We just got to find the day that works specifically. So we're going to try and get him on next week. He knows a ton when it comes to, it's going to be a little bit different. He's really big on like the analytics and, the pitch mix profiles. And I think he's going to have a lot to share with you guys, a lot of good knowledge there, and just a totally different, different kind of than what we normally bring you guys. So I think it'll be kind of some fun content there. So if you guys don't follow him already, make sure you check him out. But yeah, we've got some fun collabs coming up, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the Alan Styles one last week. I had a couple weekends ago, I should say. I had a ton of fun talking with Alan. Definitely 100% we'll try and have him on again in the future. That one was a ton of fun. So yeah, glad you guys enjoyed that. We'll try and do it. I would love to do it live. I know he can't normally commit to, a longer show. We're trying to shorten these a little bit. I know he can't commit to a longer one, but we'll definitely, we've talked about try and maybe like have him jump in on a show for 20-30 minutes at some point. So one of these weekends we'll try and do that. But I'm gonna go ahead and get the giveaway running here. So give me 1 second. Let me bring this up on the screen. Like I said, everybody, you don't have to put any kind of specific things in the chat. We're not doing a we're not doing like a certain buzzword or whatever to get entered. Just anything. You guys all just need to make comments. It says we only got 20 people entered right now. So if you left the channel, left the show and you jump back in, make sure you drop another comment really quick. I'll give you guys like another minute or two, but we're gonna get that going. Try and get a few more people in here. Because right now there's only 20 entered, so you got pretty good odds. I've got 100. We got 150 plus people watching right now. So if you want to get entered, drop those comments really quick. Yeah, appreciate the feedback on Alan there. I thought that was just so much fun talking with Alan. Just very easy guy to do a show with. He knows his stuff, and you can tell he talks for a living. I don't talk for a living, but I like to talk, so it works out. Got 21. I'm gonna draw it here in just a couple minutes. I'm being nice. I pushed it back to 9:30, so I'm gonna draw it in about 90 seconds. So if you guys haven't dropped a comment in there, drop it now, and then we're gonna wrap it up right after that. So been really appreciating all you guys hanging out today. Obviously, we didn't have necessarily a ton to talk about. I can always try and find things to fill it, but hopefully the team makes some moves here really soon. Yeah, as Insane says, they've checked in on 8 billion people per source. They're trying to help everybody fill out their bingo cards. They're checking in, they're kicking the tires, they've met with, they're having, they're interested in. They're just trying to fill out the bingo cards for everyone. I'd like to see more minor leaguers interview on the channel. We got Damian Bravo. I've got a few other people. I'm working on a couple big names. We're working on getting some more people. Obviously, at some point, we do our best to respect the fact that like this is their job. I don't like to bug these guys during the season and really pull them on mid-season or anything like that, unless it's like during all-star break and they're willing to. So once the season, once they all report to spring training, it'll probably slow down. We've got a few more people though that we've got kind of, verbal agreements with to get on the show. So we're going to have some more of those. I'm hoping to have like 5 or 6 more before the year. A couple one that's really fun. A really fun one is that I'll drop the name, but I gotta work out a day is for those of you that saw Dacing Crows, who just signed was playing, I think, like in a Mexican league, and the Giants signed him, and then he just ripped through like 4 levels last season. We're working on having him on. He's over in Aruba. He's a really interesting guy. So that's going to be one that would be really fun. So like I love getting these guys and hearing all their different stories. I know like the Luis De La Torre one was pretty crazy what he did to go. So, all right. Well, looks like we're running with 21. That's what we're going to do the drawing on. And I will get that running. Dom, yeah, just shoot me a message on either X or IG. You can certainly catch me on either of those. But we're going to go ahead and run it. And this is what we're going for here. Mark, didn't you win a giveaway like last year? Oh, man. Well, Mark, I think I've got your I swear you won one last. Okay, well, hey, lucky everybody. Mark's saying to choose another one here. So here, we'll do a redraw. All right. Kudos to Mark. He's already won. So he got we had a signed Birdsong jersey, I think, last year. I'm pretty sure he's the one who got it. So yeah, that was fun. But let's run another one for you guys. All right. Bake that dough. Yeah. Hey, well, Mad Skills, the redraw, luckily it removes the winners. I have that set up. So all right. Well, I definitely can get a hold of you because I can I know we've got your info there too, I think. So well, congrats, Aaron. For those of you that haven't had his cookies, make sure you check them out. So I know I haven't gotten to have them yet. I'll next time I'm down in that area, I'm gonna for sure be reaching out. But you listen to Glenn and some of those guys talk about them. Make sure you go check them out. So uh some of these comments are killing me. Appreciate you guys. All right. Well, I'll reach out to you for the giveaway there. We'll make sure we get that hat to you. Appreciate you guys. Thanks everybody for checking in. If we have any action, if the Giants do anything in the coming days, I'll certainly be trying to hop on. Especially next week, I'm going to have some open time where I could potentially do it. So if they do make a move, hopefully soon, we'll be on there for you. But otherwise, like I said, keep your eye out for Matthew. He'll be joining me next week. I'll probably make at least another video at some point during the week, and then we should have the Damian Bravo video or interview going on Monday, assuming nothing else comes up for that one. So be checking, keep your eyes open for that one. But appreciate you guys. Go Giants, and we will catch you next time.